Good morning, YouTube. A very happy first day of 2017 to you. I'm hoping this video is finding you happy and well and not sick and hungover. and This video I do every year. It's my year in review, and I talk about the ups and downs of my journey into experimenting with diet and optimizing my human performance. And This year was a really radical shift for me after breaking what I would consider my 5-year long plant-based vegan lifestyle. Okay, so let's talk about what happened. A lot of you are new from this channel, to this channel, and from other channels. And so I'm just going to talk about it really fast, and you can go back and look at some of my other videos where I'm more explicit about what happened. So the reason why I'm continuing on with this channel and continuing to do videos is because for so long I promoted plant-based and vegan lifestyles as sort of a great way for mankind to transition into. But then started having, and I've spent over a decade of my life attempting vegan diets in various forms and really like an ardent believer in the cause. But after this last year of having really bad problems and bad blood work, I felt a personal responsibility to report back on my experiences. And they may not be everyone's experiences, they may not even be a probable experience, but they are my experience. And there are others like me, and I will be sharing their stories as well. And I just think it's important to have truth in reporting. So that's where we're at with this. I had last year, around December, the end of December, it was about this time, about a year ago, I started having bloody noses. And initially it was just sort of an intermittent thing. And I was like, well, it's winter and the heater's on, and maybe it's just dry winter air or something like that. But I live basically in a rainforest here in the Pacific Northwest, and the humidity is actually pretty high here. So I may have been trying to convince myself of that one. And others suggested this as well. But as time went on, I got into the end of January, beginning of February, the bloody noses got quite bad. And to the point where I had 3 bloody noses in one day at one point, and I said, something's not right. And they weren't just like little bloody noses too. They were just like sitting in class, and all of a sudden my nose would just start gushing blood. So I had to reconsider what was going on. Also at that time, my physical performance was plummeting, my lifts were going down, I was gaining weight, and I just didn't have a lot of energy. So my total system was just feeling not well and not representative of man's best diet. This followed some time earlier in that year. I had gotten some bad blood work back, and I hadn't really done a video on it. I was trying to sort things out for myself and sort of reconsidering my stance on a high-carb vegan diet, and transitioned at that time into a more balanced vegan diet. And the blood work that I got back was just terrible, and I'm going to talk about it. So I've taken some screenshots here, and I've blacked out some personal information about me you don't need to know, like where I live, because there's so many crazy people on the internet, and who my doctor is, so nobody threatens him because there's so many crazy people on the internet. But this was my cholesterol total, and I had in the past, eating a high fruit diet, gotten blood work back with really high, way over the top triglycerides. But my total cholesterol was well within acceptable levels. And so I just kept marching on thinking, it's fine. I'm in range and everything's super-de-duper. But this one came back, and it was a total shock to me. I've never in my life had high cholesterol. And I am pushing into my 40s now, and there are changes that people go through when you're in your middle-aged lives and you have just physiological shifts. But my doctor was really concerned about this because it didn't match my historical trends. And he asked me, he was like, oh my God, what are you eating? And he thought that I was eating like steaks and cheeseburgers. He's like, you need to get off meat. And I said, yeah, I'm still vegan. I'm still plant-based. And he just looked at me and he was like, well, you need to stop eating junk food then. And I said, I'm not eating junk food. And he was like, okay, well, you need to maybe go on statins if this continues. And the irony of this is unbelievable to me. You can look at my HDL, which is quite high at 71. So somebody out there is going to say, well, maybe you just weren't exercising enough. 71 is a really quite nice level for a person who has, a full life. My job is not to be a fitness guru, right? Like, I have a lot of stuff going on in my life. So 71 is actually higher than it was. My HDL was higher than it was when I was doing like a lot of running and stuff like that. So I was lifting weights during this time, doing a lot of serious powerlifting, and there you go. My cholesterol was super high, and my LDL was high, and my doctor was not happy about that. And I honestly thought that it was just from eating so many carbs. And there's a lot of discussion about that I'm not going to get into. There's somebody out there that's going to be like, why are so many Asians so thin? And that's not going to be the point of this video, but I might come back to it at another time. I had other things that came in not good in my blood results as well. And one of the things that really concerned me was that my serum calcium was high. Now, if anybody knows stuff about blood work, they know that that can be a link to parathyroidism. But it also, for a vegan, could have some indications about not depositing calcium properly. And this comes back to my ongoing issues that I've had with my dental problems and needing to supplement K2. And although there's no test, but based on my results from supplementing and not supplementing, I can say from my own self-observation that I do not make K2 from K1 either at all or with very little efficiency. And K2 is really important in proper calcium deposition. So there was that came back high, and I talked to my doctor about that, and he said, well, if we see this again, then we might do some parathyroid tests just to make sure. And then going on down to that, then he was also really surprised that my serum glucose was so high, and he asked me if I was in a fasted state. And I had fasted for many, many hours. I think this exam was at 9:35, so I was like over 12 hours of fasting, and my glucose serum was still higher than it should have been. And yeah, this was a high carb, lower fat, I would say around 15% fat, whole foods, vegan diet. And what a disaster for my physiology. So moving on from that, that's when I transitioned into a more balanced vegan diet, and everybody wants to say, well, you just didn't try a balanced vegan diet and you don't know if that's going to work for you, and that is not the case. Before the 5 years that I've been working on fruit-based and high-carb-based vegan, I did do several years of balanced vegan diets and had kind of similar issues, but I didn't have the knowledge then that I do now. So this led me to transitioning into a whole foods, balanced vegan diet, sort of traditional vegan strength athlete diet. I was eating a lot of pulses, a lot of legumes, a lot of whole grains, a lot of fresh foods from the garden, greens, vegetables, fruits, a lot of tofu and home crafted meat analogs, seitan and stuff like that. And I was supplementing with preformed K2, which I've always needed since I've been vegan, and then a B complex for B12, and often some form of D as well, because we don't get a lot of sun here. So that's what I did, and I felt a little better for a while, and I was lifting, and my lifting was going fairly well, and then it started to decline, and that's what led me up to the nosebleeds. So I really had to have a hard conversation with myself after the first of the year last year. And it was not one that was comfortable. It's not one that it was it was difficult. I had to be very honest with myself that I had tried every type of veganism under the books, every type of plant-based approach imaginable, and every time over time I found myself hitting physiological walls. So I started bringing animal products back in around February, end of February, middle of February, somewhere around there. And I just started with eggs, and I got a lot of pastured duck and chicken eggs. And I chose eggs because it's a good transition food, and there's actually quite a few successful vegans, which is highly contentious in the vegan community, but people are more successful when they have some preformed fats and vitamins in their diet, such as A, D, K, and preformed fats too. So, and I got these like really great eggs from a permaculture farm, and I mean the yolks were like just huge, and they're so rich and delicious. And for like 2 weeks, I ate eggs, a lot of eggs, as much as I wanted, and I felt really different. Like my energy, the inner fire in me, my chi, if you want to call it that, or just like my sense of energy, my sense of self, my warmth in my body, everything changed pretty quickly. And within, I would say, going in the third week, the nosebleeds, the regular daily nosebleeds stopped. And that was enough for me. And some people said like, oh, it's your stress levels or whatever. Nothing changed in my life. The stress continued. The only thing that changed was bringing eggs into my diet. And, I have to be honest with that. I have to look at that and say, this made a difference. And so continuing on with eggs, I just started really reapproaching, reading about different things and blah, blah, blah. And I came to a place where I decided after maybe a couple of months, because I was like vegetarian for a couple of months, that I was no longer going to not to exclude any groups of food ever again. So about exactly 3 months, 12 weeks after I brought animal products back in, I went and did a blood test. And I wanted to do it exactly 12 weeks, but I wish that I had done one before then too, because it takes your body about exactly 12 weeks to recycle red blood cells. And I should have had an earlier comparison blood test, but I was in the middle of school and just really didn't have time to take a day out, and miss class to go to the doctors. So this 3-month blood test showed some interesting things, and my blood work was largely a lot better. My red blood cell count was within range, but my doctor said that it was still lower than he'd like to see it for me, and that it was lower than my historical norms, and that wasn't particularly good. And that's considering that I had been through bringing eggs back in and rebuilding red cell formation. And I'm going to talk about iron. I'm working on it. I have a really specific video that I'm doing on this, and I'm kind of waiting on. I've ordered some papers from the library, and I'm still waiting on them. They're a little slow in the holidays. But so he said that my red blood cell count was not at a place where he wanted to see it, even though it was okay, but that he'd like to see it return to historical norms. And then I looked at my cholesterol, and my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points in 3 months, which is a huge drop if you know about cholesterol, to drop that far in a short period of time. and in that it was really close to an acceptable range, and my HDL remained around the same, a little bit lower, but as midterms. So I was probably exercising a little less. And I haven't gone back. My triglycerides are good again, and so I'm close to being back into acceptable range at this point. And I need to go back and get more blood work done right now. And I will do that here shortly after this video, probably in the next few weeks. My doctor was really excited about me making progress into better ranges of my blood. And when I told him that I had brought animal products back in, he was also kind of a little surprised again. He was like, well, um, obviously your body's functioning better, and we'll see what the next blood work say. So that's just for me a really interesting thing. Like, I love to hear the vegan hypotheses about why my cholesterol dropped when I went back on those wretched animal products, and I was eating largely the worst animal products, huge egg yolks, chock full of cholesterol, and my cholesterol dropped, like is dropping 10 points a month. I look forward to coming back to this with new blood work here shortly, but I need to move on to some before and afters of my body, and let's get that done.